And we're back with another episode of What the
Shell
Podcast.
Guys,
we're excited. We're in this stretch of doing podcasts twice a month versus every week. And I got to admit, Ed, I don't know how it's going for you, but I am enjoying these breaks in between because, man, was it a second job. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's to say the least, obviously, because I already got 3, 4, 5. I don't even know how many jobs right now. So,
no,
so
man,
it makes it a little bit more freeing to know that we can do this. And not see it as a burden. Because I think that's the biggest thing that people get into doing this kind of stuff, and they get all amped up and whatnot. And then next thing you know, they don't realize the demand and what it takes to actually keep up with this kind of stuff. And that's why we had to be realistic with, the new year and how we do about it, and not only our life changes, but, know that we can do it manageably and do it right. So I think we have, every other, week is definitely sustainable, especially when you get good people, good quality people on, that's for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. We're in 2021. We're going to make this a better year than 2020. Get some great people on here with some exciting information for us. And hey, man, you booked this guest, so why don't you go ahead and give the introduction for our guest tonight, man?
All right, so I think it was back a couple of years, not that long ago, back when I kind of got into the the ball pythons, and
hey, I forgot you were a ball python guy for a minute.
Yeah, just a minute. And that was kind of short-lived, only because of just realizing, what it actually took in the demand for that, and I had to be realistic, with myself. So, but in that, I got associated with a lot of great people, obviously, in that community, and connected with, and actually, Brittney is actually one that stood out just because, like, her amazing photography and just everything that everyone just raved about, her and her work, and just, and not only her work, but also the incredible animals that she has also. So she's, bar none, not just, a fly by night, she's actually been involved for, I guess a while now, and she's been on many other podcasts as well. And so I'm actually eager to know more in depth about her story, because I don't really know it, but yeah, I'm excited for this one. So, if you don't, just going to check out her social media, you'll find out kind of just about everything you could maybe want to know. But, obviously I'm actually excited for this profile for her to realize, what's a little bit more behind the scenes. So.
No, man, I went and I was checking out her Instagram while I was at work today. And I got to admit, man, it was pretty surprising in terms of the quality of photos. So I think that one thing we get caught up in, especially for us as hobbyists, is like I take the worst photos of my animals. And it's even worse when I try to sell an animal. Like they just look terrible, man. And so, besides her amazing photos, she's doing some great things. So, yeah. Hey, man, I'm gonna let you drive the shit for this podcast. All right.
All right, let's go.
You're the ball python, man. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and add Brittney to the stream. Boom.
Hey, what's up?
I don't like that. How you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, bro.
Cool. Awesome, perfect. How's it going over there?
Going great. Just yucky weather. We have like all 4 seasons every week. It's a little bit exhausting.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm tired of. Actually, not tired of. I'm beg to differ. I'm getting associated more with the foot of snow, and the more associated with negative temps this upcoming week. So it's definitely a life change in a couple months, going from, I could wear a hoodie for the last day of the last week we're down in Florida. And now it's like, you need a hoodie just to survive.
Oh man, I wondered, like, I saw your first post where you were there and it was like in the first snow and you were so happy, and I was like, I wonder if this will last all winter or if this will get old really fast.
Yeah, after all the shoveling and everything. I enjoy it though. I mean, it's definitely a change of pace, it's slowing down, and obviously it's more stuff that we can do outside, and and obviously when it warms up a little bit, it's not going to be nasty humid. So I'm actually more excited about that. But so
What
yeah,
about the chopping wood, bro?
I gave up on that a little while ago. I still do it a little bit, but man, I was just like, man, screw this. I just got some space heaters. I was like, man, forget it. I'll spend the extra couple bucks because with 3 little ones running around, working nights, everything else, it's like, not
Brittney,
happening.
before we get started, I have a question. Where are you located?
I'm in a little town called Sweetwater in Tennessee. So
Okay.
if you're familiar with Tennessee, it's in between Chattanooga and Knoxville.
Okay.
And it's about 2.5 hours from Nashville.
All right.
Okay. So
The only thing that I know about Tennessee is in regards to college football, and we're not fans of Tennessee. So,
I mean, Tennesseans pretty much. I'm not a huge football fan, but like I admire their tenacity and like they hang on to the pride, but they should be embarrassed. Like, I mean, at some point you just have to admit, like, yeah, we knew that was gonna happen.
So we actually, I guess we can. I'd like to start out from the beginning because I know we kind of talked you up a little bit, and people can go back on the social media and stuff like that, and pick and choose whichever one you want to look into with you. But you're pretty well open about just about everything, it seems like, which is pretty awesome to actually get people. It's rare to get people, especially and whether it's the ball python community or and I don't want to specifically talk about them, but it is rare. When I was getting that, I was like, finding the right people, with the right message and doing it the right way, and I think that's probably what drew me to you a little bit more as opposed to like Justin Kabilka and a couple of the other people, because it can get such a bad rap no matter how you look at it. So it was great to have actually someone really being enlightening about it and not being afraid to showcase and go about it the right way. So and I don't know, obviously that's the tail end of where we really got into after what your main passion. So I'm just eager to see how you got started, and what you got started in first, and how it originated maybe like in the beginning of your life, kind of just get into origins, and just build a profile, because I'm actually excited, that we can kind of lead into all the great treat discussions of all the photos and stuff.
Okay, so if you go all the way back, when I was a kid, I told my mom that I was going to be really rich when I got big, and she said, what does that mean to you? And I said, it means I'm going to have so many animals. And she said, that's it? That's all it means? And I said, yes, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to have so many animals. And so that was literally how I judge people. How many animals you have is how rich you were, period. So I have achieved my childhood goal. I have a full zoo, and that takes a lot of work. From there, I met my husband. He was actually my veterinarian. And so he was actually my veterinarian because we have an age difference. He was my veterinarian for 10 years, but he doesn't remember me. He remembers my mom. He remembers my siblings, my animals, but can't remember me. I think it's just a mental block. So
you get to almost start fresh,
Yeah, I think it's the pigtails and braces. There was something about, mental block there, which is fine. He remembers me conveniently the first appointment he saw me after my 18th birthday, which I find kind of like, yeah, I had to figure that one out. But anyways,
no, you didn't walk in with the mermaid outfit though, right?
No, I walked in with a blue and gold macaw. So I literally gave him the bird, and so then it went from there, and we started dating, and we got married about 6 months, 7 months after we dated, and we were like, we love animals. We wanted to do something together. At the time, I was actually a piano teacher. I was trained as a concert pianist from little, but had terrible stage fright, so I could never use that for anything, but I loved kids. So I had built my own business when I was 16, teaching piano. And so I said, but I had to drive quite a distance to the neighborhoods where I worked because I'd go into the students' homes. And I really wanted to be able to stay at home. We wanted to have kids. I wanted to homeschool. And we said, let's look into something that we can do. And of course, I wanted to do something with animals because we just had a kind of a hodgepodge of pets at that point. And Johnny comes
Like
home.
farm animals, you mean, or just like?
Like we had a dog, we had the blue and gold macaw, we had a pair of hawk-headed parrots, we had some finches. I had an orange tabby cat that was my red-headed stepchild that terrorized me when Johnny wasn't home, but then was as good as gold as soon as Johnny walked in the door. So we kind of just had, you know, those random pets. So we started talking about cats. Okay, his cat finally died, and we're like, let's do this. And I was looking at cats with big blue eyes and, you know, bushy coats and all that. And he comes in from work and he said, I saw the cat and it's the cat we have to have. And I'm like, please don't be the naked one. Please don't be the naked one. And he shows me a picture and it's the naked cat, you know, the Sphinx. And I'm like, okay, you can get that. But I really wanted one with hair that I could pet. And so he goes all in. This breeder says, oh, well, you should get this beautiful show male. And then, you know, I'll give you a couple girls and you can build a little program, blah, blah, blah. So he gets suckered in and pays $2,500 for this show cat. We have no idea anything about showing at this point, but we're like, oh, yeah, let's do this. And when we went to pick them up, she holds out this little naked kitten. And I'm sure you've seen Sphinx. And I love them now, but at that point, they freaked me out. And so the breeder pulls up this little kitten that looks like a rat that had been shaved. And
at least you gotta be honest. You gotta be honest. Because I've actually never seen a baby one. And isn't that weird? Like, you only see the adults, like, in pictures if you, like, just people showing them, but you never see a baby. And it's, like, almost the exact opposite with puppies and stuff. It's like, why don't you just show, are you that, like...
Because it looks like a naked mole rat.
They're awkward. So she holds it out. And I thought maybe just the photos were bad and it would be cuter in person. Turns out I was so far off the mark. It was uglier in person. So she holds it out. And I was raised in the South. I'm born and raised in Tennessee. And my mama taught me, if you don't have something nice to say, you don't say nothing at all. So I just smiled and put my hands behind my back and said, honey, she's got your cat. And so after we had them, though, if you've ever been around a Sphinx, their personality, they have too big of heart. I mean, they are the sweetest cats you could possibly imagine. And I got addicted and I started looking for my own. And then we went to a show and my cat kicked Johnny's cat's butt. And then I was addicted because I'm kind of like a little competitive. And so it kind of went from there. We built a Sphinx program. We had a small breeding program. The breed has a lot of health issues. So we started outcrossing to kind of bring in, you know, some new like domestic bloodlines. So you could bring in that new bloodline and try to reduce a lot of the issues that they were having from heavy inbreeding over the years.
And what does that look like? What kind of qualities do you look for in as far as the qualities to be able to domesticate it more, to know that you're gonna do the species justice, but not water it too down, or have the bad effects of
hair.
So
well, no, but you can have this neurological stuff. You can have things go on when you're in a breed.
Yeah, it's tough, and part of the problem is like, okay, I probably have cat friends that are watching this, so I'm sorry, guys, but the whole crazy cat lady thing is actually an understatement. Crazy cat ladies are like, crazy. And everyone has a different set of standards. And if you don't meet this person's standards or that person's standards, then you're a horrible person and we're going to blast you all over the internet. So it's like a dance that you're constantly doing. For us, what we looked for was big barn cats, like that big tomcat that like nothing can kill it and it's just taking over the barn. And so we kind of went for that. And then we would do all the health testing and everything to make sure structurally there was no health issues that were known. We liked it if it could be a little bit older. That way you knew it kind of got past that age where some of the early diseases, that could kill an animal, because a lot of times puppies and kittens, before they're, 2 years old, if there's a genetic issue, you're going to know about it. So if you can get a breeder that's a little bit older than that, that can give you a little bit of an edge. And unfortunately, a lot of it's luck. I mean, I hate to say that. You do the best you can. You pick the best you can. Same when you're picking your bloodlines. I mean, I imported 9 times from Russia. I had cats from South Africa, France. I mean, I brought these cats in from around the world to try to get different bloodlines and make the most solid pedigrees I could out of those.
You just didn't go out to the barns around town? I thought you were talking about...
I mean, I got my barn cats from this area, But when I wanted to actually, add their Sphinx into the line, a fully hairless cat, it, rather than just using the same pedigrees that had been here in the US, I would look for other people in other parts of the world that may have also outcrossed and had a pedigree that was, very distant or not related anywhere that we could find in the pedigree.
So are cats pretty well, obviously, in other countries, probably considered a lot more higher, up like standard, or like how does it work in countries like when it comes to cats?
It actually really depends on the country. So some of the countries, like for instance in France, they have really, really hardcore standards for cat breeders. Like here in the US, you could pretty much just buy 2 cats. They might not be good quality because a lot of good breeders are not going to just sell you lines they've worked on forever. They're going to want to know, like, what are your plans? Are you just looking at this as a money investment, or do you actually want to make an impact on the breed in a good way? But there's not really, the governing associations don't really put a lot of restrictions on you. Over there, I mean, they are going to come to your house. They're going to double check what you're doing. They're going to limit what you can name them. I mean, they have like a whole set of rules, like testing you have to submit. Before you do a breeding, you have to take both animals to a vet, have them scan them to confirm that those 2 microchips were the 2 that were breeding, so that you don't get any pedigrees that people lie and say, oh yeah, this cat bred this one, but they're really lying, So there's like, that country has a lot more standards. But then you go to a country like Russia, and unfortunately, a lot of the people that breed dogs and cats in Russia have a lower income. And they've realized a quick way to make money. So if you actually go into some of these Russian, homes, they've just got cages just stacked around their walls with just pins and pins of puppies and kitties. Ironically, sometimes you get a lot better looking animal there because they are doing so many breedings. They're able to very quickly better their type by picking the best. So they're moving forward faster than a breeder in the US that's only going to breed, 1 litter a year, and it's going to take however many years to have enough lines to pick from to make better pairings. So it's kind of, there's like the whole pros and cons of that.
Interesting. How long does it actually take? Is there like a standard as far as age wise that you want that maybe you and then other countries want to stick to?
You typically around the world, most people are like, 12 months is where you want to breed your general domestic cat. And when I say domestic, I mean like most of the small breeds. Now, if you get a big cat like a Maine Coon, a lot of times those are not sexually mature until they're almost 2 years old. They're just bigger cats. They take longer to mature.
Cody, why can't turtles be like this, bro?
Hey, I'm not a big cat guy. I will admit I'm allergic to cats, but those Maine Coon cats are insane. They're like the size of bobcats. Like those.
Huge. They're huge. So are Siberians. By the way, if you're allergic, Siberians, they're not hypoallergenic, but they're pretty much the closest that you can get. And for whatever reason, people with allergies don't tend to have a problem with them. It has something to do with the dander that they do.
There you go, man. Like, and guess what? I actually have a special treat for you later on in the podcast as well. So, you're getting a 2-for-1 tonight, baby.
Listen, my mom was fostering some kittens, and she decided to come visit me and my wife and my daughter, and she had like 6-7 kittens, and my daughter went nuts, and the whole time I'm there like,
kittens are fun and addictive.
Nah,
my daughter wants one, but I can't do cats.
Yeah, I actually can't do cats too much either, but my grandma actually was one of them cat ladies too, and she had I think she had 10. I don't know if that qualifies as a cat lady, but I think it did. Yeah.
I know much bigger numbers than that.
But they were mainly all strays.
Yeah, I have a few of those. It's funny, all my years of showing and breeding, and I have more mutts than I have purebreds at this point. And I'm like, I don't know how that happened, but I don't mind. But yeah, it was fun. So I showed those almost 10 years, bred and showed the Sphinx, and had a really good time. I was on the breed committee over the breed with the association to help make decisions for the breed. I served 2 terms on that. So I had a lot of fun with that. And I have good memories of some of the funny things. My favorite was probably, for some reason at cat shows, they almost always put the Sphinx next to the Persians. And I mean, I'm sure you guys know what a Persian is, right? So the flat face, huge puffy coat. I mean, these cats are like the show quality is excessive amounts of hair. And they always put us next to them. So we were always making like stupid comments. People would be like, oh, look, and now one with no hair. And we'd be like, well, we donated. It's like lots of love for cats, And I had this little kid come up, and I was tired. It'd been a long show weekend. And he was probably about 6. And he came up, and he looks at my cat, and he goes, your cat's missing its hair. And I jumped up and I grabbed my chest and I'm like, what? Where did it go? And so I start panicking and I'm like looking through the bags and this kid's freaking out at this point. And he goes running down the aisle and he goes, Mom, the lady lost her cat's hair. And yeah, thankfully Mom had a sense of humor. So once he came back up, I got my boy out and I was like, here, and I explained the breed and let him hold it. And, everything was cool, but his face, I will never forget.
Now, what is, man, and I'm sure it's the same way in dog shows because my girl, which, oh my gosh, if we had land, which we will, a dream would be, obviously I got my girl fixed because immediately it was like, this is going to be my baby girl. And I have no other plans other than a sidekick at that matter before I met my wife and everything. But the Ridgeback, and golly, man, you're not going to find a more beautiful dog. I don't care how biased that sounds, but I mean, even the lady that's been doing it for almost 20 years, I got her from, you walk into her house and it's nothing but trophies, pictures. I mean, I walk in and there's 20 dogs, and I just walk in, I'm like, oh crap. And they all look at me at once. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, and she was like, and after a couple of minutes, she was like, and it's kind of like how you said, after a couple of minutes, she was like, well, you passed the test. I'm like, test? I didn't think, what test are you talking about? And she's like, well, Stryker, who's like the old granddaddy, he was like, he likes you. He was like, so I actually based upon selling a lot on him. I'm like,
wow.
I was like, I can appreciate that, and she's got a barn, a farm, let them all run naturally. I mean, it was amazing. But yeah, like you said, when it's just that prestigious, element of her, and just all the other dogs. Like I can see where people find that niche and that fine tune where I never would have imagined a dog of that kind of caliber other than just dogs. Like when you have dogs growing up, in that element of, so when it comes to showing and stuff, like what kind of qualities, what do you actually look for, like in the cat? Like, because obviously you're not going to be like doing, I mean, I don't know if you do tricks and walking. You don't, I mean, it's probably a whole different set.
They do have agility. They do have agility
really?
And stuff.
And they actually listen?
Yeah, you run it through a course and everything, and it's hysterical because, I mean, come on, like afraid is hurting cats. That tells you what their attitude is. But if you have one that's really toy motivated, you can drag the toy through the obstacle course, and the cat will go for it. So one of my cats got a pretty good time on that. But typically, no. When you are looking for a show cat, and for us, we always tried to find a balance because we did the Sphinx, and then we established the Lifeway breed. With a team that helped us. We were the ones that developed the Werewolf Cat. And so we did a lot of shows and had to do a lot of type selection. But a lot of times what breeders overlook, and this is like my pet peeve, because I love rescue. We've done so much work with shelters and all that. There is a space for reputable breeders and there is a space for rescue. I don't think that either answer is, like, one is bad and one is not. I think there's terrible rescues that are nothing better than hoarders and are doing the animals a disservice. And I think there's horrific breeders that have no business having an intact animal. Yeah. I think there's like the extremes on both. So for us,
you can go the same way. Like my dog was from a breeder, her dog was a rescue. So I mean, it's kind of that balance. It's not like an underlying, but it's like when they're at least doing it the right way, then you're doing the species and you're doing the owner and you're doing everything a justice for it, just like with any other reptile or even animal that we can probably talk about. It's like doing it the right way as opposed to getting a sick animal in. It's like, well, then you get a bad rap and bad this and bad taste, and it's like then you get people that once could fall in love with something, now like totally flip side opposite of like, forget this.
And you've done a disservice to the animal, and you've done a disservice to the breed, and you've done a disservice to your buyers. And so for us, you know, with the cat, that was like really important. Is I wanted when people, you know, when I'm dead, you know, and people are looking at pedigrees, I want them to see my cattery name and be like, oh, I've got a Gobble's Goblins in there. You know, that's a cool, that they know that it's a breeder name that's good to have in your pedigree. You know, I mean, that's what you really want. Versus the ones where when you're going through somebody's pedigree and you're like, ugh, you want to stay away from that one because you know they were doing some sketchy stuff. You know, I wanted to make an impact on the breed. So even when I wasn't breeding, there was a sense of pride in what we had done. Yeah. And so for us, that came with the balance. You know, I missed out on top show cats many times because I chose to keep the one in the litter that I felt was better for the breed long term. So for instance, you have a litter of kittens and they all get vaccinated. And one of the kittens, the beautiful kitten in the litter, because it's almost always works out that way, the beautiful kitten in the litter with the perfect ear shape and the perfect eye shape and, you know, turn it to the side, the perfect nose and everything like that is the one that has a horrible vaccine reaction. It gets over it and it's fine, but you know that its immune system had something going on. So ideally, you wouldn't breed that animal because it shouldn't be in the gene pool. You need to keep the sibling that had no reaction whatsoever, because that means that it's got the stronger immune system, but maybe it had a little bit of peach fuzz on its skin, or maybe its, you know, ears are a little too pointy. So you don't get to show that animal, but if it has a good pedigree, great health testing, and it has a good immune system, it's the smarter one to keep because it still has the same genes to produce that beautiful ear shape and that perfect show cat, just not that generation. So, you know, and I knew so many breeders that would overlook that. You know, I mean, there was a breeder, she had a wonderful pedigree on these two parents, absolutely stunning pedigree. Both cats were known to be really healthy. It was one of the last matings that one of the parents was going to be able to do because of its age. It was just, it needed to be altered. It was finished. And the kittens came out and they had the wrong ear shape. Okay. Well, she didn't want anybody to know that the cats were from her cattery. So she altered them all and placed them as pets because she was too embarrassed that her cattery might have produced a cat that didn't have perfect ears. So the breed really lost out since those animals, at least one of them should have been kept in the gene pool because it was healthy. And whether or not its ears were perfect, you can work on the look of the animal, but you can't change what they say. Like it's like building a barn. You can change the paint color, but it matters how well you actually built the structure first, you know? So that was kind of, for us, that was kind of a big thing. And then we took that, like I said, we took that into the Likoi where some of these possum cats.
I just Googled it and that is an insane looking cat.
Which one?
The werewolf cat?
Yes.
I was on my phone. I had to Google it. I was like, werewolf cat. Yeah, Ed, you need to look it up, man. I would like to hear about this. The little Google excerpt said that there was DNA genetic testing that it's not Sphinx, and what was the other species of started with the D, Devon or something like that? Is that what it was? Let me see.
Yes.
Look, I'll hang out with my white wolves tonight. They'll follow you.
So was it originally like two different types of cats put together, and then you just bred it until they were no longer present?
No, so actually these two kittens originally, the first pair that showed up, a rescue got them and they said maybe they're Sphinx because they don't have any hair on them. And they gave them to a Sphinx breeder, Patty Thomas, that I knew at the time. And when their hair grew back in, it was like, okay, wait, these aren't Sphinx because Sphinx don't grow hair, you know, but they only grew that partial coat, giving them that Wolfman Jack werewolf look. And, you know, when you are going to maybe make a new breed, there's a lot of health testing. There's a lot of expenses that have to go into that because you don't know if it's a genetic anomaly that's not going to be able to be reproduced. You don't know if it's a result of like extreme inbreeding to the point that there's so many health issues, you can't, you know, there's nowhere to go with that. So she gave them to us, and my husband, you know, being the veterinarian, he started doing all the testing. We sent out DNA. Another pair showed up in Nashville Oh no, my husband's trolling now. He warned me he was going to troll tonight. Like, yeah, he wants to call them the possums because the pair that showed up in Nashville was put on Craigslist, and they were advertised as half cat, half possums. And the people legitimately thought a cat had bred a possum and created these things. And I'm like, sure it did. I'll take them. So we got those. And so we had a brother and sister from Virginia and a brother and sister from Tennessee. Did all the health testing, sent the DNA. They're not Sphinx. They weren't any known cat breed. It was just a freak genetic mutation in the natural feral cat population.
Wow.
And so we bred the male from Virginia to the female from Tennessee to prove if it was genetic or not. Because again, we had no way of knowing at that point. And we got one little girl, and she was born fully coated. And no one had seen a baby Lycoi at the time. So we had no idea how they developed. So we were like, well, bummer. I mean, either it's a dominant gene that we just missed the odds, or it's not a gene at all. And then about 10 days into it, her hair fell out and she went bald. And then the hair started growing back in. And so we figured out that that's how the Lycoi coat works. They're born solid black, fully coated. You can't tell them apart from any other kitten. And then the hair falls out, and when it grows back in, it gets that roan, that black and white, which also didn't exist in any cat breed at the time. So not only did they have a weird coat pattern, they had a weird coat color, which exists in guinea pigs and horses and all that. So that was really cool. And we started working with Eugene Davis and a feline geneticist. She moved on, Dr. Lyons. She moved on to another university, and she mapped the entire genome of this breed. So every time a new mutation would pop up, and I'd fly wherever, Canada, Arizona, wherever I needed to go to get this new mutation, we'd send her the DNA, and she'd say, yep, they're not related. And she would, we'd add them to the gene pool. Of course, we didn't want inbreeding. That was a big thing to us. We'd already seen how much damage had been done to the Sphinx breed. So what we did is we took black domestics. Again, it's kind of cool because with the Lycoi, we found out over the years, people started messaging us and letting us know, oh yeah, our shelter had a cat that looked like this 20 years ago. Turns out Lycoi were just being euthanized because people assumed they were sick because there was no cat breed like them, and nobody wanted an ugly cat or a sick cat. So they were being put down. Wow. And then once we started finding them, all of a sudden people are like, I found a diamond. It became like this great thing, of they were loved and not just tossed aside. So we started working with some shelters, and we took in, like, they'd have big black cats, just beautiful black domestics, that weren't being adopted because there were too many kittens at the time at the shelter, and these were going to be euthanized. And we would make the deal. Well, if we get them, we'll do all the health testing. We'll do 1 or maybe 2 litters with them just to get their genetics. Then we'll spay them and neuter them, and we'll place them in pet homes where we continue to follow the health to make sure that they're healthy. And, there's not a problem that we need to watch for popping up in the line, because some things don't show up, for years. So you want to kind of keep track of what's going on. And so we like to call it like the second chance breed, because a lot of it, the original cats and everything were shelter cats that were set to be euthanized, and cats that were tossed, one was behind French's mustard factory. One was in a dumpster. These were like throwaway cats. And then, wow. We trended on Facebook for 3 days. We trended above Donald Trump back in 2015. Like when Facebook used to have the trends, we were like on top of it. The Lycoi just took off. It was crazy. And that was a lot of fun. We had a wonderful team that helped us.
I have a question real quick. So you took the Lycois that you had and just took regular black cats and bred them to try to get more Lycoi, or did you get like crosses that you then had to breed back, or how
okay, so it's to be a recessive gene, which, like, I don't know, like you said, turtle guy, I don't know, like, if you do a lot of recessives or not, but recessives can suck really bad. So it's great when because you're like, oh, I know exactly what I'm getting in this litter. On the flip side, it makes things a lot harder a lot of times. And when you're trying to prove something out, that was a big challenge, because like I said, that first breeding we did with Lycoi to Lycoi, and we produced 1 kitten and it was a Lycoi. But that doesn't tell you if it's a dominant or recessive, because it was 1 kitten. You'd need more to know. So we bred the 2 males, the male from Virginia and the male to Tennessee, to a black female domestic, like 2 unrelated black female domestics. and none of the kittens were Lycoy. None of them turned out to be anything. So we were like, okay, now we've got like, I think they had like 5 kittens apiece. So we're like, odds are it's recessive at this point. You know, you would think you would have hit a Lycoy if it was dominant. So we took what we called the F1s in the snake world or reptile world, they're the hets. We took what we were thinking were hets, and we bred those together, which would give us a 25% chance of producing a Lycoy. And this is how bad it sucks. So I bred the first, you know, het-to-het pairing. I got 7 kittens and not a single one was a Lycoy. And I was like, well, how did that happen? Like, what was the odds of that? But I had placed the other kittens from those first 2 litters. I had placed them with another breeder. So she did the exact same pairing, you know, 1 from one litter, 1 from the other. She got 5 kittens and 3 were Lycoy. I'm like, are you serious? Yeah. So anyways, it turned out to be recessive. And that's kind of where we went from there. So after we had those hets bred together, we would keep a Lycoy from that breeding. Then we'd alter those parents. We take that Lycoy and breed it to another domestic and produce another set of hets. And so we kept doing this with cat after cat, creating, you know, hets.
I got another question. What is the most amount of cats you've had at one point? Because that's a lot of cats.
You're gonna get me like up and hung or something, because cat people like aren't like reptile breeder. It's not like a stamp of pride when you're like, I have this many snakes. No, in the cat world, you're like always like guess a little lower, you know. I don't know.
You can
so
guess
actually,
a little lower.
Time, the most I think we had was 66 cats.
66.
And yeah,
you really mean 100, but you said 66, so we won't judge you off 100. I got you.
No. In the cat world, 30 is like the limit where it's like after that you're kind of like psycho and there's no way you can be a good person, which I do understand. And in most cases, it wouldn't be good. But when you're establishing a new breed, you have to set you need a gene pool. So we needed enough unrelated cats. Then you have to keep those hets to grow up. And, you know, it went from there. And then the other problem was you needed a certain number of litters. We needed, you know, you're only going to hit 25% as your odds. So when you're doing hets, you're not getting that many. We had some problems with some of the breeders not really keeping their word. So they weren't actually helping with the outcrossing. They'd get the cats and then they would do a shortcut because they wanted the money litter versus making more hets that you can't sell. You can sell a Lycoy kitten for big money, but you can't sell a het for anything really, you know? And so in the end, me and Johnny said, you know, we set out to do this and we're going to do it. And, you know, we still had some of our good partners were still helping us, but we had a boarding facility at his veterinarian office that we weren't using. Beautiful indoor, outdoor, so the animals could come inside and go outside and sunbathe and all that. And so we just had all of our outcrosses in this boarding facility and still took care of them. It wasn't like we didn't see them. Still checked every single cat every day. But then we paid people $8 an hour to scoop, poop, and pet kittens. I mean, that's actually what their paycheck said. I could have bought a sports car with the money that I paid in 1 year for people to just sit with the cats. I'd be like, just take your phone in there, lay down on the floor. I don't care what you do. Just snuggle the cats. Because I didn't want, you know, when you get so many animals, especially an animal, you know, snakes is not that big of a deal. You know, a lot of times they don't really want your attention. But with cats and dogs, they need socialization, they need attention, they need that one-on-one. And physically, you can only pet so many cats.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. I mean, you got so much of that. It's not like it's like, you know, turtles and stuff. Like you can get that personality and stuff, but it's just like, you know, when you're talking to that kind of caliber, I'm like, look, you gotta make sure you know what you're getting into as far as demand wise, not just taking care of it, food, you know, the basics. It's like those kind of animals go above and beyond the basics. So I was wondering, did it actually in the end pay for itself, or like how does it? Was it more of a wash, or like how? And I know we don't like to talk that kind of stuff, but sometimes it's realistic. You know, if people want to get into things and realize, like, know what you're getting into, because it's most of the time it's not going to be for some big major profit, especially when it's a luck of the draw, or like it's just when you take time. Like I spent, you know, 7-8 years on certain, you know, groups. It's like in animals, it's like, it's not like, I mean, when you said a year for a cat, I'm like, golly, I mean, you can start almost like that as opposed to like turtles. It's like, you know, 4 or 5, you're dang lucky, you know, but it's.
Oh yeah. I just bought into boas and I'm like, I have no patience. And it's like, what do you mean 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
I'll die before then. I'm used to cats, 12 months and you got a new generation. Let's not even talk about rodents, you get like a new generation every 6 to 8 weeks. That's instant gratification, you know? Going back to cats and dogs, you can make money like to where you can stay at home and still do it well. Breeders don't want to hear that, and we've taken, you know, flack on the internet for this before. But if you invest in good animals and you take care of your buyers and you offer, you know, you can't slap up a Wix website with terrible photos where they can't see the animal and be like, give me your money, here's the PayPal button. It's not going to work. But if you talk to these people because they're adopting a new family member and you treat them respectfully and they're getting updated photos and all this other stuff, they're going to come back. They're going to send more people. And, you know, you set a bar for yourself. So, yes, you can totally make money. The first years, it sucks for us because we started with the Sphinx. The Sphinx had the health issues. So instead of getting to do Sphinx to Sphinx, which is also recessive and have litters where you can sell every single kitten for $1,200, we decided to back up and outcross, because we wanted to like try to reduce some of those heart issues and immune system issues. So that meant instead, for a whole year, I was having kittens that I was adopting out for $125, which was the cost of the spay and neuter and vaccines, versus kittens I could place for $1,200. So I was like, I mean, I was in the hole because you needed litter and cat food and cat toys and, you know, all these other things. Yeah. The Sphinx finally, actually, I got to the point where I had, you know, made my outcrosses. I had my lines. They finally actually started turning a profit the year we started working with the Lycoi. And I had to use everything from them to pay, you know, people to scoop poop and pay for litter. And so I ended up, it was about a 5-year, you know, trying to build up to that. By the time we finished with the Lycoi, because I traveled, I had to go to Austria to, you know, present this breed. There was so many things that you had to do. We'd sunk $100,000 into seeing the Lycoi become a cat breed. We did it good. I mean, the judges now, even now, that the judges will tell people, and the people in Tika that will say, if you want to know how to do a breed right, you contact the Gobbles. So we'll get emails from breeders saying, you know, we can't figure out where to go with this. You know, we're trying to make a new breed. How did you all do it? We did it in 5 years, which was the fastest any breed. That's the minimum amount of time you can establish a breed. And that was the fastest any breed had done that. And they said that we wiped the floor. They said every single breed should have done it with a class. I mean, we made a magazine so that the judges could flip through and see how they should judge it and know the full history and see how the coat developed. And they're like, if every breed would put this kind of love, we would have more education. So after that, once we started placing breeders around the world, because breeders became interested in different countries and stuff, a breeding pair like we sold for $10,000. So we put quite a bit of money away for Johnny's retirement. And then that's actually when we decided, you know, cat showing, cat breeding, doing all this, it's a whole other level of stress. Yeah. And, you know, you can't really travel because there's so much hands-on stuff. You know, you need a kitten that you have to bottle feed. Nobody else is going to do that the way you're going to do it, you know. So when we decided to step back, actually my reptiles were my going away present to myself.
I have a quick question. Before we get to reptiles, I got to get this question out. With the cats, what does a Sphinx crossing that's not a Sphinx look like since it's recessive?
Just a haired cat. Looks like a haired cat.
So it's not a special look. It's just a bald cat.
Okay, so it will have like a slightly different eye shape. It could have, sometimes Sphinx will have a curled tail. They shouldn't, but it's a trait that is very heavy in the breed, like a little pig corkscrew tail. So sometimes you'll still see that in the crosses. They tend to have a little bit rounder face that gives them that cute little round look. So there are some features that you will see, but if you look at most cat breeds, other than like something dramatic like a Persian with a smashed in face or a Siamese with a really long face, if you think about most cat breeds that you know it by a trait, a single trait. Like we said Maine Coon. You're not going to tell me, oh, I know it because it has the long tufts between the fingers and it has this different undercoat. And you're not going to know that. You know it because that's a huge cat. You know, the Sphinx is a naked cat. So most cat breeds are more based on a specific trait is what the public knows them as. There are little details, obviously, like I said, like, you know, your shape and stuff, but.
Part 2, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Growing up, my mom was a huge fan of Hemingway cats. Is that like an official breed?
It is not. Those are polydactyls, which where they have the extra digit, and
Okay.
it's in several breeds. It is a trait that is debatable because, like, if you breed too heavily on the polydactyl, you'll start getting club feet, and then that raises ethical questions because you have to be kind of concerned about, are they able to walk? Are they comfortable? Is it impeding, their life? Having an extra toe doesn't do that, but you don't want kittens. Most people don't want kittens or puppies that are being born kind of given a bad start to life,
All right. You're free to go to Reptiles. This is what we've been waiting for.
Okay. Okay, so my going away present, I was like, okay, I've dealt with a lot of cat drama. Like, I didn't go into it here, but cat people are crazy. I spent 5 years being bullied online over the cats. Everything they could nitpick, they nitpicked because I had people around the world. I mean, we had 100,000 followers. I would wake up to messages, people nitpicking everything from my socks to, something in the background. I'd have people freeze frame my cats where one eye would be like winking because it was blinking, and they'd freeze frame it, and then they'd be like, oh, look, their cats are sick. I mean, like, the level of pettiness is unreal. And because it's around the world, I would wake up at all hours of the night having to deal with people posting nastiness, just being me. And some of it's funny, like the stuff from the general public. I mean, we had some downright hilarious mean comments, and I do videos about it. I'd read the mean comments, and then I'd laugh about them. But it's different when it's coming from cat breeders who are really just trying to trash you and say, oh, you don't care about, whatever, because if you don't give them what they want or you don't give them another free handout, then they're going to turn on you. I mean, cat breeders are just, it's like that. So I dealt with a lot of that, and it was very stressful and it was very hurtful. And I went through a kind of a dark, depressive time. And I actually didn't think that I could put myself out there to make friends or anything. I was so over people, which is hard because I typically I'm not like that. And so I told my husband, I said, I still love genetics. I absolutely am obsessed with genetics. And I really want to have something I can do to still mess around with genetics, but not that requires that level of, day to day that you had to do with a cat, and no vacations and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's the snakes. And we did leopard gecko. But then when I was like, okay, I really want to do this, that's when we went into the ball pythons. And
how long ago was that? Like, where time frame wise, what was popular? What was kind of like?
Let's see. 2017 is when I started getting into it.
Okay. So wow, I thought it was longer than that. Not very long at all.
No, I'm a newbie. Yeah. So I saw a Banana Fire Freeway from Billy Rose from Mutation Creation on Morph Market.
He's from Canada, right?
Huh?
He from Canada?
He's from Canada. Billy is. Yeah. And I saw that snake and I was in love. And I told Johnny, I'm like, I have to have this snake. It was a $5,500 snake. And he's like, why? And I'm like, it's pink and it has rainbow colors on it, and I'm pretty sure it probably poops glitter. Spoiler alert, it does not poop glitter. And I had no idea ball pythons could poop with such large amounts. I mean, it looks like dog poop. It's totally fine. I've cleaned up a lot worse, but it was still a surprise. So anyway, Johnny called. I told Johnny, I'm like, I want just like five, and he calls Billy, and Billy convinces him that this is a great investment. There's really good things that can be done with it. And then Johnny got excited with me, and he's like, yeah, let's do this. And so that's when we kind of said, rather than looking at this as just like a few pets that we want to look at in tanks and maybe do a clutch or two, let's invest in some projects and, look at this more seriously. And so once we kind of got that mindset, then it's like, okay, well, then we want to be an asset to the community. We want to, do some cool things with the ball pythons, that will, I mean, if somebody's working with a gene or started a gene and we start working with it, I want them to be glad. I want them to be happy. Like, they're not like, oh man, how did they end up with that gene?
Yeah.
So that's where we started with the reptiles, and we have loved it. It's been a crazy ride, but we have loved it.
So where did it go from a year? what did you first start to get into? Was it more of a kind of what you saw that kind of spoke to you? Because I know when I was getting a little bit really into it, I mean, my thing, like I am a black and white like fanatic, so like the Xantic, and I mean, it was just like I can't get enough of that. So, and it was like kind of like a special niche too. Not too, so many people were flooded with it, you know. So that's kind of like where I fell into. So it was like, look, and it's so easy to be like, well, I want this, and get outside your niche. So did you kind of, was it that hard that you had to stick to a certain one, or did you kind of still dibble dabble and but you still had one main project you want to work on?
We basically, when we set out to do it, okay, freeway, obviously straight off the bat, freeway was something I loved. I wanted to produce freeways. I liked the variations in freeways. So that was kind of that first thing that sucked me in. And then once we looked at that, we were and wanted to kind of look at some other things. Then we got into the stranger. We bought a stranger female from Roland. And then shortly after that, we bought into the Monsoon Project, which is the one that was in that profile picture with the granite look pattern. I tend to like the snakes that have dirty patterns. I love the more chaotic, the more crazy the pattern, the more I love it. I'm not a huge pied fan, and I know like I'm going to take hate in the comments for that because people love it. And I'm not saying, I mean, there are some beautiful pieds out there. Dreamsicles are amazing. But for me personally, I love seeing the pattern on the snake.
So you're probably like, what's that? What is it? One of the guys that we know, what's his name? That snake, he has freckles.
Oh,
it's like a pied, but it's called Freckles, but it's like a pied, but it's like, I mean, his whole entire body's like freckled. I mean, I think he got like I think he got published on like Reptile Report or something too, didn't he?
Oh, I did see that one.
Yeah.
Yes, that is cool. See, I would go for that because the white is all dirtied up. I love that, craziness. I don't like. I have the Enhancer Project, which is like Desert Ghost. Man, that is so cool. That is sick. Yeah. So I got the Enhancer.
It's kind of like
crazy.
It's almost like a stamp badge, and then the rest is just like.
I would love for that to end up being genetic. I mean, I'd be all over that. So when we came in, we wanted to play with some new things. Again, coming from the, we just had established the whole cat breed. We were like, we want to play with some new genes and figure them out because that's where we get the fun. Is we want to, even if it doesn't prove to be genetic, we want to give it a try and see what it does. So that's kind of how we got involved. And for me, we talked about photography and the little bio thing was a new challenge for me as well. I did photography with my kittens. I became pretty, people knew my name from doing photography with the cats and the props. I was one of the first pet photographers to actually use like newborn props with animals. And initially I got some heat from some photographers because they were like, what are you doing? Cat show photos have no props. You don't put a kitten in a basket or you don't, on all this weirdness that I was doing. I'm like, oh no, you should. And that's a kind of normal thing. But
I know actually, some of those. I know some of those photos, like with Justin stuff, is like the fact that you can almost put its name that signifies what it describes in its own element of how it's described is just like, I find that like the most like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, like it was like, dude, like I want to poster every one of them, like, what I'm saying, like hang on a walk, just because it's like when you capture some of it and it's almost like, I want to say in its natural, it's almost like it's a natural environment, as much as you can make it its natural environment for what it's worth of the the design and everything like that. It was just like, golly, I was like, man, and it's so creative. Like most people, it's almost like that against a grain. I mean, you don't see that, especially that much intentfulness on it, and I think that actually does every morph way more justice than just a dollar sign, because I feel like, like the stamp that you put on a lot of this stuff, doing this kind of stuff, work, puts it way more of a high value than just money. And I think that's what's invaluable, because like you said, you're making a name for yourself in whatever lane it is, but people will, I want to say the last thing they'll think about is like, okay, how much, but it won't be the first. you know, and I think that says something when someone contacts you about your animals, you know.
It is. And I've had a couple people where I went to buy an animal and, you know, I'm new. I still feel like a newbie, you know, like, I mean, not in the insecure way. I've done my research, you know, I feel like I'm doing my animals justice, you know, I'm not like running across a new situation. Why is my snake doing this? You know, not in that way, but I still feel so new to the reptile community. And for me, you know, I'll message somebody about purchasing a snake and they know, and they're like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to get photos of my animals. I can't wait for you to get it, you know? And that's like such a compliment, you know, and it means a lot to me, especially again, leaving the cat world specifically, you know, one of the big factors being going through so much hurt, so much backstabbing and that kind of thing. And then coming into a community where, I mean, yeah, come on, there's pettiness anywhere, but across the board, the reptile community is just so supportive and just, you know, encouraging to each other. I mean, come on, you have this podcast and I'm a ball python. I mean, I have some other animals, but I'm a ball python breeder. But then you invited me on, you're like, oh, this is exciting, you know, and that has all been, you know, really cool. But it's a lot of fun having people, you know, recognize my photography. I've spent a lot of years on it. Like you said, I mean, you can ask Johnny. He's had some really weird trips to Hobby Lobby and Michael's, and he just goes with it now because I'll be like in the aisle and I'm like putting all the like little decorations side by side, and I'm like, no. And then I'll do this, and I'm like, no. And people are looking because like, what is this crazy woman here? And then I'll be like, this is it. This is the set. And he's like, okay, whatever. Like it all looked the same to him, but for me, like there's a vision. Most of the time, before I even take an image, I've already envisioned how the animal's going to drape and how, you know, if I'm going to put more than one animal in it, or, you know, I've got an image in my mind. I know how I want it to look edited when I've taken the image, like the whole way through. It's just how my brain works.
Now, how do you actually, I mean, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, unfortunately, that also means there's been a couple of times I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea and apparently went Amazon shopping and added some really random stuff to my Amazon cart because I had a great idea. And then the next morning I woke up and I'm like, what is this stuff? And I can't figure out what the idea was.
Now, how do you, I mean, obviously ball pythons are kind of a little bit easier. You get your sporadic ones, but like, you know, for the most part, they're pretty docile and they're pretty timid and, you know, they're easier to work with and pose and prop. Obviously, I would not. The last thing I want to do is actually grab one of my turtles and expect to try to get a still shot of it because that ain't happening. It ain't happening. I've tried, and luckily, if you look at my poster from my past, you know, calendar, the only reason why I got it to stay is because it was just like, you know, snap, 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 and get her up, and you know, I have her handed in the hand. It's not like she's on the ground because that ain't gonna happen. But you find yourself in any kind of scenarios like trying to make sure it works, and you know, it's like aggravating. Do you have any certain things that you do to try to, you know, coax, you know, and all that good stuff?
It's different. It's very different because that was the biggest thing, which I love a challenge, and I was getting bored with the cats. Not the cats themselves, but with like photographs. It was like, okay, I've got my lights. I know the tricks. You know, for a cat, you have two options. You either nail the shot within the first 15, 20 seconds, or you just wait them out because cats do whatever they want. So you might put a cat in a box 20 times and you're just waiting until the time the cat finally like, fine, whatever, I'll just sit here, you know, and then you're like, click, 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 and you're done. And it takes only a few seconds, or you get them by shock. And a lot of people don't know that. You put a cat on the table, you don't want them on the floor. If the cat runs off, they know they can get away. You're not going to get the cat to stay still. So I put them up on the table, put them up there real quick. You have a teaser toy, so it's like a rod with a little feather or something, and you just like flick it in the air real fast, bang, bang, bang. The cat's not sure what's going on, so it has its ears up, its eyes open. You nail the shot, you're done. I mean, it can be that fast. So, you know, there comes the time when that gets a little boring because, again, it's either a matter of waiting them out or nailing it really fast. And if you know your lighting, you know your gear, you're pretty much good to go. So coming to the reptiles was fun. Like you said, the ball pythons, you'll get a couple crazy ones. Like I have one that just refuses to unwrap. It will not ever wrap up in the bin, get it out and hold it. But as soon as it's under the studio lights, it got balls up completely. But other than that, for the most part, they're actually kind of boring because they just sit there, you know? Yeah. I mean, like, ball pythons don't do much. My Western hognose, those are fun to shoot. because they will give you all sorts of poses. They'll do the pretzel, you know, they've got this cobra little thing they think they're doing. That's fun to me. I'd say probably the two weirdest was I went to Brian Love's in Florida, and he's got
he's got the albino alligators and stuff like
Pearl.
that. Yeah, I was actually supposed to go down and meet him, but then the whole COVID thing hit, and I was like, well, but yeah, I was like, because he was only like, he was in Jupiter or something. He wasn't very far from me, actually, only like 45 minutes.
Yeah, he let me come. So he had a melanistic, he had a hypo, he had the pied, he had Pearl, the albino, and he just got 2 new baby albinos. So he just let me go to town. That was fun because I don't own alligators. It's a dream animal, but you know, you're like watching for teeth, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this one's good." Like, and then this one's not, and you're, you know, your instinct if an animal starts to like crawl off is to grab for it, but you don't grab for an alligator, you know. So that was kind of interesting. And then I went to Ohio to photograph the Vogel, generic, Jen and Eric Vogel. Okay. They have a large venomous collection. Okay. So I got to do cobras and stuff like that. Huh. And that was a lot of fun, like the gaboon, and, you know, getting to see totally different look, you know, different sound. Everything was really cool. That one was fun because it put me so far out of my element. Because I used to be terrified of snakes. I'm not afraid of snakes now, but I have a healthy caution of venomous. Oh, you were scared of them, or you still are?
I'm afraid of snakes.
That's why I said we're gonna have a 2-for-1.
I was terrified, absolutely terrified. So bad I used to have nightmares, and I tried to jump off our back balcony, setting off the house alarms because I dreamed there was a snake under the bed. And my husband is a Marine, and he was like, "Yeah, this isn't gonna fly. We don't do fear." And he went and bought a milk snake and put it in our bedroom, little tank. Wow. And so I went by her.
That is actually pretty extreme. Like, that is like, I commend him for actually like just, dude. And it worked, obviously, because I was like, but I don't know how many women you can get away with that with.
Yeah, I didn't want anything to do with her. I named her Delilah because that's like, you know, the Samson in the Bible story. Delilah was like all beautiful and sneaky. And I was like, "You're pretty," because it was like albino and everything. I'm like, "You're pretty, but I'm not falling for it." So her name was Delilah, but he kept dragging me to the reptile store because he needed things for her or whatever, you know, it was. And every time we go, I'd see the snakes, and there finally ended up being one that I fell in love with. And that's kind of where it went for me. Just owning them as pets again. We weren't breeders. That was 13 years ago when that all went down. But yeah, I had to get over.
And now you got like a whole facility working now, didn't you? I seen you were like getting like a building and all that stuff. So you're actually getting it a little bit more, I don't say serious, but like you're getting to that caliber to where, you know, outside of just homebody.
Well, okay, so you can tell from the other stories, we kind of take everything to the extreme. So, you know, once we decide that we are invested in this, you know, like, okay, we want to do this the best that we can do it. So we have our building now where we have the snake building. But I only have, you know, 60-ish females. You know, I don't want to be big. You know, that's never my goal. I like to select my projects and then focus on them. So like, you know, I have the monsoon, and I have several directions I want to go with that. And then I have Hatari, and I have several directions I want to go with that. So I don't want every gene. I want what will work with each of my projects, and I don't want to get beyond that. I don't want this to be, I don't need another job. I do a lot of like crazy things all the time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even with that prop work and photography, I mean, you can pretty much, if you took it to the extreme, I mean, you pretty much got a solid probably cast and booking, you know, year round of, you know, specific animals of people's pets and stuff that you could pretty much just book on out.
Yeah, my husband tells people you can't afford her because I only will take an animal to photograph if I'm or a client or whatever if I want to photograph it. So you can't actually pay me to photograph your animal. I have to be interested because I haven't done that dog breed, or I haven't, you know, there has to be something to where I'm intrigued because I didn't want, this is a creative outlet. This was something, you know, that like, I don't want that pressure of like, somebody's like, when are my photos going to be done? Blah, blah, blah. Now I will say I had a lady just messages me and she's like, I want these set of photos for my cat. I want these sets, blah, blah, blah. How much are you going to charge me? And I really didn't want to do the photos because it was a Sphinx cat. It wasn't one of my kittens. It was just some random person on the internet found me. And so I added up how much time I thought it would take. And I quoted this lady $1,000 to do photos of her cats. And she said, tell me when, I'll be there. So sure enough, she came and she spent another $600 because she wanted canvases and prints and everything. And then she came like every 3 or 4 months because she needed Christmas photos and her cats needed birthday photos. And
Oh. He got you. Oh, got him. But hey, man, I mean, at least it goes to show, you know, you have a, you know, a niche that people, you know, desire, you know, and actually put that kind of time and effort into something. Because I feel like most people, and I've seen it firsthand. I mean, luckily, I think there's a reason why you have newborns photo shoots and not much after that until they're a couple years older, because newborns, they're right there. It is what it is. They don't move, eyes shut. But like anything else after that, like my 2-year-old, dude, she used to be so photogenic. Now it's like I have mastered the craft. Not mastered. I have gotten very, very up there on being able to get the shot for her. But now it's like she sees the camera, gone, head down. You know, the ones you see on Facebook, it is just I know how to get her kind of thing.
my kids are usually bribed. I mean, that's the only way. There's like, it's actually in the photography groups. It's known as photographer kid syndrome. And they don't, you know, kids just hate it. I mean, they hate having a parent with the camera all the time. So most of mine are, you know, like under threat of death. Just kidding. Not really. But it's like, you know, if you will please just stand there and smile for 1 second, you know, and they'll be like, fine, you know. I love kids, but I photographed a couple of kids, and, you know, I love the kid that I photographed, but it's just not something I enjoy doing. I did a couple of high school students, and they're not as much fun as cats. And people tend to also, now I've been asked to do some nip and tuck jobs on some animals, like cats, you know, like, oh, you know, can you take some of the wrinkles off, or can you, you know, groom them a little bit more? I've done that. I've been asked to do that. But for the most part, animals are a lot easier. People, on the other hand, are like, you know, your camera made my nose look big. I'm like, actually, the lens that I use is a compressing lens, so your nose would look smaller in these photos. But you can't say that, you know? So, you know, then they're like, you know, why does my makeup look like that? And it's like, because you did your makeup like that, you know, and it's just not worth it.
When you get into people, it's like anything that can fire back and you can understand. I mean, at least if you know, animals can fire back and everything, and it's just like, okay, it is what it is. You can't understand what they're, you know, trying to get at.
Yeah. So I enjoy doing the animals, and I want to come see you. I need to do some more turtles. I've done a few turtles and a few tortoises. So I went to Tide Park's facility, Iguana Land.
Oh, did you? Yeah, he's pretty much should be almost getting ready to get opened here soon. I mean, me and Cody have been definitely following since the beginning. Actually, Cody donated a couple of his turtles. They're on exhibit there now.
Oh, how cool! Yeah, I went in January of last year. He said, "Yeah, sure, you can do behind the scenes." So I hung out with his the crew that was building and everything, and set up my photos. And he brought all kinds. It was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen that many different animals and, you know, species in like one day. That was so much fun. And I think actually, because I sent him the images, I think some of them are going to be on the signs, like the little display thing. Yeah. So some of the advertising material and stuff.
I don't know how. Golly, man.
And then Ozzy, I went and saw Ozzy Boyd's. And he has some of the, red-eared spider, I think is what he has. And I got to photograph. And it ended up being like, it's so funny on my photography account, which is originally was mostly cats. For like, it's one of the top photos. I mean, I look at the impressions, the number of views is his turtle, and I'm like,
Really?
people love turtles.
Dude, no, they do, and I think they're so underrated. And that's why I think, you know, like me and Cody's love for terrapins, especially. I mean, it's the most diverse, you know, potential. It's just like, golly, it's just through the roof. But it's like, you know, going about it with the due diligence, you know, taking the time and investment is probably the hardest thing to do. That's why so many people, either they just get one, which is impossible, or they just don't even get into it at all, because it's like, you know, it's that investment thing, you know, especially because the quality is always there for just a species in general, without even having to try to breed and, you know, come with all this other kind of stuff. I mean, they're just gorgeous as is, pure. And I think that's what I like the most, is just that purity, you know, even with the Ridgebacks, it's like just that pureness of the Ridgeback is just like, I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, most people, you know, they see my dog and they're like, I got a Ridgeback too. I'm like, no, you got a dog that's its hair stands up a little bit. No, I don't got a ridge that goes backwards.
No, no, for sure not. But your photos of your turtles, man. I mean, I see them and I'm like, I've wanted turtles for the longest time, but I also have to balance, you know, how much time and how much energy I have.
Don't worry. I mean, I should have a stock here this year, so it actually should be my good first legit like good year, I'm hoping. So I mean it's
hopefully my husband's not trolling right now. He's always, I'm like, honey, I've got an idea, and he's like, oh no, not another one.
No.
But I'm about to have a really big, well, not really big, but a bigger facility. So, you know, I'm gonna have some space.
Well, I mean, and all you need is like, you know, get yourself one single waterland tub or something like that, and just they can be right there for show, and you can take some pictures, and then next thing you know, a couple years down the road, it's like, okay, you know, we can do this now. It's just like, and you can just, because other than, I mean, that's why I think most people are so not with the aquatic, is because it does take, you know, especially when you have like a lot of, especially when you separate them and this and that. But if you have just like, you know, a couple, like, you know, at least they can stay in one tub. I mean, it's really not too bad of maintenance. It's just when you get beyond that, then it's like, okay, this is like really, you know, it's a lot, you know, especially with the upkeep and the cleanliness. So, you know, ball pythons are definitely a little bit, you know, easier to have, at least as far as like multiple, especially because you separate obviously and stuff like that. So, but yeah. So, I mean, it won't hurt to have a couple few and just start out, you know.
I like my diversity. I mean, that's kind of, so we have our ball pythons. I may take on another gene or two, or there's a couple that I'm looking at, but I'm pretty happy with where my program is. I just, you know, I'm making hets right now, triple hets, double hets. So I'm making a lot of normals. It's like, this is an exciting clutch, they're all normals, and this is an exciting clutch, they're all normals. So in like a few years I'll have some cool stuff, but you know, right now it's the boring part.
And then you go to Justin's, it's like, I'm just gonna go home, probably.
Yeah, well, that's where I get my fix. You know, I'm only 2.5 hours from Justin, so
oh really?
I get
Oh yeah, isn't he in Georgia?
Yeah, Gainesville. Okay. So it's like a mountain drive, and it's a beautiful drive with some nice restaurants. And then, you know, it's easy to just go down there and see him and see some cool stuff and get my fix and be like, all right, I just got to hang in there. You know, eventually I'll get some cool stuff like that too.
But that's the thing, like, you know, even with the ball pythons, is that, you know, you have it almost seems so flooded, but if you really dial it in, there's only like a handful of like legit solid names and, you know, specifics out there, you know. So it's like, as flooded as it may seem in essence, you know, but there's really few that are carving their way.
I agree. I mean, and it's just the care. I mean, there's so much to it. If you really want to do it right, it's not just buying the animals. I mean, you have to pick the, you know, good quality. You pick a good breeder. Then there's the care, but then there's the marketing, and that's a big thing at this point. I mean, we live in the world of social media, and you have to figure it out whether you like it or not. That's the way it works, and that's where your skin is reputable or not. I mean, most people check Facebook or Instagram to see, okay, are they legit? You know, before they spend money. And then there's the photos, which I kind of laugh because when you all were talking and you're like, you know, oh, we have horrible photos or whatever. And I had to laugh because my buyers are the opposite. So a lot of times I get asked if I will just take a cell phone photo of my animals. So just so you know, the grass is like always greener. So if you take horrible photos and the person's like, can you take a photo in better lighting? You know, it's like, oh, too bad I'm not a professional. But then if you're a professional, they're like, oh, can you like go take it in just like normal lighting? And I'm like, my lights are set up to be like accurate to life. In fact, I take a little bit of effort to reduce the color of my animals because I would rather when they get the animal in person, it'd be even better than they were expecting than for them to be like, oh, you know, she cheated me, or because she's a photographer, she made it look better than it should have looked, you know, or whatever. I like my customers being like, man, this thing's even brighter in person. I'm like, yes, you know.
No, that is a good concept to think about because we all like the premiere, the lighting, and all that stuff, especially when we post. And it's like, you gotta actually, you know, if you're planning on selling a little, you know, and all this stuff, it's like, yeah, work them up a little bit.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, a lot of times I get asked, and sometimes now I just go ahead and include a cell phone snap that I took outside in my market listings, just because it's like, I just know that's going to be the question that gets asked. Is can you just take a normal photo? So it's kind of like either way, you're probably going to end up taking another photo, whether they want a better one or whether they want a worse one. But
so what
yeah,
are your
I
goals
agree.
now, like moving forward?
For me?
Yeah. Like in general, like you want to stick to the ball pythons, or like for now?
So,
and
ball pythons, most of my projects I'm happy with. Like I said, there's a couple more genes I'm thinking about buying into, but I really want to think them through because you only have so much space. And I kind of, you know, I want to think like, where can I go with that? How is mine going to be unique? I'm not looking, I don't enjoy like looking on Facebook or Morph Market and be like, oh, I love that snake, I want to make that snake. That's like not the way that I want to work. I want to be like, what pieces can I take to make something that I haven't seen yet? I mean, we know that Justin will probably make it first, no matter what you come up with, but I would like to, you know, try to come up with an original thought or something along those lines.
yeah.
But I enjoy diversity. I mean, I enjoy that challenge. I enjoy learning about new animals. So this year we actually bought boas. And actually, I guess late last year, I started buying boas. So I have a small program of boas, which I'm loving. Their personality is completely different than I'm used to with the ball pythons. They're a little spunkier. I have one that's very mouthy. He sees me and he's just like, you know, all like, I'm not used to that. I'm used to my pet rocks that just let, you know, like sit there. And so I have a very small, like 9 boas. And then, of course, I have the Western hognose. I have a few more of those. And I actually have, my newest thing is I have rainbow boas coming once the weather is.
Rainbow boas are amazing. I actually, back when I was in college and did a lot of handling with them, I mean, they're just gorgeous, man. Like just in their purity.
The albino. It's past my bedtime. The T positive, I believe. Yeah, it's the caramel one, the one that's like all purple and orange. And now I'm just blanking on it. But anyways, I'm getting it. It's a beautiful snake from James Bergman in Florida.
Like that? Or is that not real?
Yeah, it's Brazilian rainbow. So I'm getting, I have 2 that I'm waiting for shipping. They're called candy stripes. And the pattern, a super candy stripe, ends up with a stripe instead of the circles. And what I might to take that male candy stripe and breed it to the albino female, which of course is like, now again, I'm like 15 years before I'll see the end of this project. But in the end, I could have a really cool super candy stripe. It's just going to take me a long time to get there. So basically,
do you guys make a lot of your own cages, or do you use racks other than like the rack system? Like, how do you guys prefer?
We originally, Johnny built me what we call the redneck rack, which is like the melamine rack, you know, that he built with the Tupperware and all that stuff. And it holds 24. And he's like, that's all you're getting. That concludes your holdbacks. Don't ask for another rack. That's all the snakes. And now I have a lot more racks, but we buy them now. I mean, it's just, there is something to be said. I mean, they're just so easy. I mean, the cleaning up is easy. They fit in perfectly. The temperatures, I definitely enjoy that. So in the new facility, we won't have the homemade rack anymore. We'll have just all either AR breeder and breeder racks.
Oh, nice. Now, do you have a special guest still, or?
I do have a special guest.
Okay,
so,
Cody, you know, I know Cody likes to do the honors usually and be like, hey, you know, so here's the part where you get to say where's your favorite, you know, animal, or, you know, this or that. You know, I figured, Cody, I would try to one up you, since you guys you take the reins and show a demo this time.
Okay,
make sure you're looking. Make sure you're like looking up. Hey, let's see your eyes. There you go. Look at that.
So what kind of snake is that other than a ball python?
All right, so this is the one I was really excited about, because he said pick my favorite. I'm like, I can't even pick my favorite. Like, and a favorite of what? You want a favorite hognose, a favorite ball python, a favorite boa? This could take a while. Normally I go for the snake that was in the picture you guys used, which is my monsoon female. But this was the baby that had me the most excited last year. This is a stranger, and she is a stranger pastel Jedi Grim, and it's a world's first. This was the first time this has been made, and so I got to name it, and I named it the Borg because resistance is futile.
That's crazy.
Some of the Star Wars people were not so. They're like, "Wait, it has the Jedi gene, and you named it the Borg?" And I'm like, "Yes."
That's crazy. You know, that's crazy, because like I think when I was getting out of it, like all that stuff wasn't even like, I didn't even see a lot of that. Like, and I was like, and it's crazy how fast, just boom, 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 and you know, people are like moving to the not next thing, but like things are coming out. You know, so what's your plans for that one now? Just grow out and no.
So that one was
male or female?
That is a female, and it would be the best one to keep. And the reason I say that is I have a stranger female. I really should be keeping the stranger male, because with ball pythons, you know, females don't breed for 2 to 3 years. Whereas a male, sometimes, I mean, they'll breed before they're a year old. But I just loved her look so much. And so, you know, I went back and forth with Johnny, and I was like, you know, the breeder part of me could see there wasn't a male with the same genetics, like the same, you know, they each got different sets of genes. So none of them had this look. And, you know, when we were talking about it, I said, I'm doing this because I love it. So I'm going to keep this one because this snake made me excited. When it came out of the egg, I was excited. Every time I open my bin, I'm excited. I know it's a female. It'll take longer. I don't really care. You know, I mean, to me on this one, it's worth it. It might have been smarter to keep a boy. I don't care. This one was cool to me, and I get excited. And every time I post her, people are like, you know, what is this thing?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of time where we go back on. I think that's a lot of time where we go back on, like, especially in terrapins. It's like, look, it might not. You gotta keep almost like what you know you're passionate about, you know, and it's like what just will keep you in it for the long haul, you know.
Yeah.
And if you don't keep, I mean, it's just a matter of time before it's gonna get watered down, and it's amazing, you know, how quick that can happen if you're not, you know, jack of all trades trying to do this and this and this, and then next thing you know, it's like, well, if you dial it in, man, every time I look at this one, it's like, I don't care what anyone says. I literally don't care what anyone says. This gets me, you know. So that's even what I did. Like, I downsized, and to the point where it's like, okay, this gets me, all this gets me, and it's like, okay, you know, I'm happy, you know, instead of trying to, I might have more animals, but that doesn't equal happiness.
No, it doesn't. And I know for me, like I said, I mean, I think you always have to balance it. Like, you know, especially if you're doing anything as a business, and you have to balance out the good business decisions. And then you also have to balance out, though, that you're doing this for passion, for love, you know, you know, I don't want to open my bins. You know, I could invest a lot more money, and I could buy a lot of snakes that I wasn't passionate about, you know, genes that I know will sell because they will sell, and people would buy, you know, take pretty pictures. People probably buy them from me, but that's not what I want to do. I want to be super passionate about every single animal that I have. You know, that's what gets me. You know, It's cleaning is not a job when you're excited because you can't wait to open the bin and see that animal again, and you're like, man, it looks just as good as or looks better than I remembered it looking, or it just shed.
And
so
then
cool.
and then you get to the breeding aspect. It's like, oh my god, like if this gets me, I can't even fathom, reproducing something that can come from this, and it's just like, I think that's, Cody, we can all agree. It's like, dude, like just, whether it's a, ornate, with a flower back gene or whatever, it's like, it's just like things like that to where like you can carry on and carry down and you never get, obviously with turtles and terrapins, obviously it's like, you always have that, thing of like, you never know what you're going to get. You don't know what's been in the generations from, for a long time. So it's just like, you just always have that phenomenon. I mean, it happens in the wild. That's where most people find that phenomenon in the wild. I think it's like, try to translate it into the hobby, and most people are like, oh well, it's not natural. Well, I mean, it happened in the wild, so I mean, it's just a freak thing that can happen. So I mean, it's kind of like, if especially morphs and all that stuff can get a bad rap, but I feel like, especially in the terrapins and even with ball pythons, like it's almost like if it has the capability to do it naturally, then you're really not you're not really what's the right word you're not doing it injustice by going outside the realm of like scientific kind of thing, where you're trying to mess with the genes, and then next thing you know, things are going wrong. You're not manipulating, I guess you could say, it. So I think that's the best way, real, raw, and true, I think, that I stand by is
Oh, I agree. And then you've got to remember too, conservation happens when people get excited about things. And breeders, if all ball pythons had only the normal ball python coloring, not as many people would be wanting to breed them because, they all look the same. There's not that same level of creativity and, the fun of getting to do it, like trading cards or anything like that. But because all these breeders are involved, the pet industry got to be bigger. So ball pythons are owned, and other reptiles are owned. And it is a lot of times because of the breeders working with these morphs. And then when conservation, things need to happen, there's money. I mean, there's money to help with conservation effort. People are more aware of these animals and, like, oh yeah, we don't want them to die out in their natural habitat. We love this animal, So, and I don't think we would get as much of that if people in the pet industry and regular everyday people didn't have access to these animals as well,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, but
yeah, and I mean, you're always gonna have the flack, like you said, but it's one of those things where you just literally just got to turn the other cheek and know that if in the hearts of hearts you're doing the animal justice, and I think that's what it boils down to. If you're doing animal justice, then I mean, you really, you can have an earnest heart on what you do. If you're any kind of good human being, I guess you could say.
It's fun. How much fun is it? Like the little girl I just showed you, she has a gene called Grim. So Grim is one of the genes that when you breed a Grim to a Grim and you get, the super form, however, like it's funny because the cat terms and the reptile terms are different. But basically when you get that super form, they call it the Grim Reaper. And it's a really like dark, very, chaotic pattern snake. It's super cool. Now, the stranger gene kind of like, it's almost like taking a black Sharpie and it just kind of pops that pattern and does some really cool stuff with that. While Jedi just causes chaos. So you think about all this, my goal is to breed that girl who is a Grim to a Grim male that's also Mandarin being a gene that brings in oranges. So I'm hoping at some point to hit basically a Grim Reaper that's also stranger and Mandarin. And I think that's going to be like really cool. Again, I mean, like how many years, I don't know. But there is a point to keeping her, in the long run. There would be cool stuff.
That's the thing. Like, it's almost like an endless possibility kind of thing, where the limit of the species is just like, if you can't fathom it, then, it's like, it keeps you like always guessing, which I think as much as, you can be as scientific or, degree or this or that, knowledgeable, we don't know everything about everything. I mean, that's just, ignorant to think that. So, I mean, I think you always keep that, that childlike, instinct also at hand of like, you just never know, and that I think there's a beauty in the unknown. So
I
well, it's actually, man, we went for a lot further. We almost hit the record.
Almost, man.
No, it's been good. No, definitely no, especially because I never would have
Hey, we spent
anticipated.
45 minutes talking about cats.
I never would have
Did not expect
anticipated.
that.
No, and I never anticipated that either, and actually being that intrigued on it all. So, yeah,
well, hope
I didn't.
that it body.
Yeah. Now I have a lot more to Google.
Yeah, same here.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Don't believe everything you find on the internet. Just put it out.
Hey, you're the cat lady. If I have a cat question, I'm like, hey, what is this?
You'd be surprised. Like I get that quite a bit. I'll be tagged, like all these reptile people are like, oh yeah, Brittney, someone will ask, and I'll get tagged like 100 times, and a cat will have a weird pattern, and then I get tagged over and over and over, and I'm like copy paste and copy paste. I don't mind though. I don't mind. I'm just, but yeah.
Well, do you have I mean, I know we put most of your social media out there. I don't know if we got the kittens one, but other than whether it's like your, I don't know, like your morph market and stuff like that, do you have certain things that you'd like to just get out there if people want to like actually, whether they're interested in following you or actually like, okay, even if it's not now, I would really love, I get her and I would love to get an animal also from her eventually. This is just kind of like that time that we can just put you out there.
Awesome. Gobble's Reptiles. I try to keep it consistent. So it's Gobble's Reptiles on Morph Market, Gobble's Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook. The Instagram one has a little link tree. So if you click it, it'll open up to my YouTube and some like other little links where you can follow the different Instagram accounts and things like that. So it's kind of easy to find if you just go to Gobble's Reptiles on Instagram.
Awesome. And just type in Gobble and Instagram in general. You'll feel
yeah,
it has to help so much having a name that you can pretty much just carry on into anything and everything and it just catch.
Yeah. And Chris, I don't know if you know Chris Eaton.
Yeah, with Snakes and Fat Man. Yeah, I listen to a lot of his stuff.
Oh yeah, and he won't let me live that one down. He's like, you missed your marketing opportunity, and now it's a stressor for me. So mine is Gobble's Reptiles, but I thought about originally, I was like, oh, because this is my business, I was going to be Brittney Gobble's Balls, but the apostrophe becomes so important in that sentence that I was like, I just don't think that's going to work. And my pastor's on my Facebook, so yeah. So I went with Gobble's Reptiles. Well, I told Chris that privately as a joke. Yeah, that didn't last. And now like Limey Smiger's like, this is going on stickers. I am making the stickers for you. And I'm like, oh, please. Yeah.
You could make a little pair of testicles that are the design of ball pythons, and it'd be Brittney Gobble's balls.
Yeah, see? But the problem is because I made that joke, and I'm actually always really nervous when I have to be recorded or videoed for something. And that's what comes out now. So when somebody's like, hey, let's do a quick video, and they're like, and say where you're from. And I'm like, I'm Brittney from Brittney Gobble's Balls. And then I'm like, wait, no, let me redo that. That's not what it is. So somehow now my brain has decided that's my fallback. And yeah.
Hey, well, it's definitely entertaining, and it's a good icebreaker for the future. So don't be afraid to start off with your balls.
Okay.
You're gonna have fun, and we're actually looking forward to down the road, having you back on and seeing the different projects and stuff like that. That's why we want to really focus on profiles and people, getting to see where they started from and where they're at now, and what sparked them to get into it, because you're the first that we've had for cats. I mean, you're the first. We've had. I think we've had a lot of different ones, mainly all reptiles, but I don't think we've ventured out much of reptiles either. So there's a niche right there that you've pretty much carved yourself in that lane also for us. And yeah, we're excited to see whatever happens also in the future with your boas and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll be following it on social media and seeing all that kind of stuff also. And
that's gonna be, well, thank you. And I want to come see. Yours. I need to photograph some more turtles. I need a turtle fix.
Oh yeah.
And I slip a couple in my car when my husband is
come to that breeding season, you'll be seeing plenty of them, and it's gonna be like, okay, I can't help it. Just send me a couple. And
well, let me know when you start getting like, some good ones in the ground that you want photos, and we'll see if we can work it out to where I can come see you.
Sweet.
That'd be fun.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, I got to get to work, guys.
And that snake I showed you, like I pulled her down, and she just like full like splatter all over me. So I've been sitting here smiling, and I'm smelling snake pee everywhere. I gotta go watch.
Yeah. On that note, Cody is out.
All right, guys. We appreciate you guys for watching. Until next time, this has been another episode of What the
Chill
Podcast.
Can you say podcast real quick?
Podcast.
There you go.
I don't have that natural inclination. I have to like emphasize it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, she's got it. Tennessee, yeah. Sorry.
There you go.
Right here.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Y'all have a good evening.
Take care.